You will now be placed into conference. To mute your line, press star 6. To unmute, press pound 6.
Stand where somewhere, Todd. Hello? Yes. Yeah, fast or the video everything goes on. How are you?
The leader has muted your line. To unmute your line, press pound 6.
And with our 4:30 p.m. update on Tropical Storm Harvey. Going through our slideshow here, there's a change in Harvey. Harvey strengthened a little bit this afternoon and is moving faster. So now the landfall projection has been moved up till 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. tonight, and the location near Sabine Pass, Texas. However, the major problem associated with this system continues to be the heavy rain and dangerous flood threat, especially in southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana tonight. Any additional rainfall that we do see tonight will be hampered for purposes of people getting around when it's dark out like that. So flash flood fatalities go up at nighttime and people are driving around in it. So we definitely encourage everyone to stay off the roads tonight when you have the heavy rain bands in your area. And obviously in southeast Texas and parts of southwest Louisiana where the roads are already flooded, you don't want to go in those areas anyhow. Now, due to the new forecast track, a tropical storm warning is in effect now for more areas. So it includes Jefferson and Orange County in southeast Texas, and Calcasieu, Cameron, Jeff Davis, Vermilion, Iberia, and St. Mary parishes in Louisiana. So what we're expecting now is wind gusts in the 50 to 60 mile range for coastal sections of Jefferson County and Cameron Parish. So we're talking about Sabine Pass down to Holly Beach, Johnson Bayou, downtown Cameron. That's where the higher wind speeds will be along the immediate coastline. Now, up on the I-10 corridor, the winds will be gusting more like the 40 to 50 mile range from Beaumont to Lake Charles and over to Jennings tonight. Now, on Wednesday, the winds are still expected to be gusty across the entire forecast area. So not just the I-10 corridor, we're talking about East Texas and Central Louisiana, South Central Louisiana as well. The numbers that we're looking at are 40-mile wind gusts after sunrise, decreasing to 30-mile-an-hour gusts in the afternoon. Now, with all these wind speeds we're talking about here, with all the rain we've seen, we're expecting to see some more trees fall down across our forecast area due to the combination of the winds and the saturated grounds. The storm surge values have been bumped up slightly. We got 1 to 3 feet above ground level for Jefferson County, so that's the same. It's higher to the east of there, 2 to 4 feet above ground level for Cameron, Vermilion, Iberia, and St. Mary parishes. The highest values will occur during high tide tonight, which will be around the midnight or later hours. A storm surge warning now is in effect for most of Cameron Parish eastward. Now, through tomorrow, we're forecasting an additional 4 to 8 inches of rain in southeast Texas and 3 to 5 inches of rain in southwest, south central, and central Louisiana. Due to the speed of the system, we're expecting a majority of the rain to be over with by Thursday. Record river flooding is still forecast for Powell Bayou near Sour Lake and Bevel Oaks. Major flooding for Village Creek at Coons, the Natchez River at Saltwater Barrier in Beaumont, Sabine River near Bon Weir, Bayou Anacoco at Rosepine, Bundy Creek at Bundy Lake, Calcasieu River at Old Town Bay, Bayou Nipiquet at Bazille, and the Mermentau River near Mermentau. There's still a small threat for tornadoes tonight and tomorrow. We don't have a watch out, but you'll see that we do have a warning out for some areas. This is the latest satellite view of Harvey, basically the big blob of thunderstorms you can see near the coastal areas of southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana. An outer rain band associated with Harvey is well to our east now, actually moving in around the Mobile area, the Pensacola area over in the Alabama, Florida region. Locally, this is what the radar looks like. A large area of rain across all of east and southeast Texas, some of it still producing very heavy rains. and it extends into Louisiana. There's a rain band that extends from parts of west central Louisiana down across southwest and south central Louisiana as well. The green blocks on here indicate areas where the flash flood warnings are in effect, and the pink box indicates where there was a tornado warning in effect south of Crowley. So, like I said, we're not out of the window of the isolated tornado threats yet. This is the new forecast path for Harvey. It's currently located east of Galveston, and it's projected to make landfall, give or take, around Sabine Pass as a tropical storm. The main impacts will still be rain and flooding for tonight, and that will obviously continue into tomorrow from the flooding perspective. But the wind and surge forecasts are also going to be a factor for southeast Texas and southwest and south central Louisiana. Here's a graphic that probably better represents how much rainfall we've seen so far during this event. You can see the lower ends, 3 inches in Alexandria, about 6 inches in Lafayette. And then we start seeing the bigger numbers, 14 inches in Lake Charles, although you'll notice in eastern Cameron Parish and eastern sections of Calcasieu Parish, it's more on the order of, looks like 15 to 20 inches of rain. And then get over to southeast Texas. That's where the big numbers are. We're looking at over 30 inches of rain in the good section of Jefferson County and southern sections of Hardin County. The 20-inch contour goes well into Hardin County and goes in the southern end of Jasper County as well as the majority of Orange County. So big numbers that we've seen so far associated with this event. Here's the remainder of the forecast scenario for rain totals. This is now through tomorrow. And you see at the top it says through Thursday at 1 a.m. So this is basically what we're looking at for the next 30 to 36 hours. So the bullseye of 4 to 8 inches of rain, southeast Texas, 3 to 5 inches across all of our Louisiana areas, southwest, south central, and central Louisiana. Expect to see flash flood warnings when these heavy rains occur in your area. Here's the latest updates from the river perspectives. Lots of points in pink, which indicate the major flooding. We've already rattled off where all the major flooding locations are located, so we'll look at some of these numbers. Some of them have been tweaked slightly. The Kuntz, Village Creek near Kuntz, you can see, is in a major flood right now. It's still 28 feet and rising. It's forecast crest of 32.2 feet on Wednesday. The bottom left, Pine Island Bayou near Sour Lake, it's 37.68 feet, so we're getting very close to the record flood there. We're forecasting it to go up about a little bit less than a foot higher, but still a foot higher than the 94 flood, so significant flooding for that area. On the right, we're looking at the Neches River at Saltwater Barrier on the top. The latest reading is old, you can see from 7.6, but the forecast has it going up to around 12 feet for the end of the week into the weekend. And the bottom right, the Neches River at Beaumont. We have an observation that got out on the boat there to measure the reading for us, so we feel it's a valid point of 9.4 feet is where they're at now. It's forecasted to go up near 13 feet or a little bit more than that later on this weekend. Now, something to kind of point out here when it comes to this flooding on the Neches River. This is similar to the situation that we have with this Sabine River flood, where water is coming down from the north to the south. So you expect this water to come down. It's kind of bottleneck at the I-10 area due to I-10 sort of acting like a levee per se, where the water is going to be piling up into portions of Orange County, portions of the city of Beaumont, as that water is coming down from that saltwater barrier line. That's why the water is just kind of sit there at that, give or take, 12-foot range over a several-day period here at the end of the week. Some of that water is obviously going to get out underneath the bridge and come down south. The value there in Beaumont itself, which the gauge, by the way, is north of the interstate, is we're expecting it to get to that 13-foot level. So that's north of the interstate. Once you get south of the interstate, that value is going to be decreasing. Just like we saw over in Orange County, where we had big numbers in Deweyville and much smaller numbers down in the city of Orange. Same thing here. So even though we're saying 13 feet up at the gauge in Beaumont, which is north of the interstate, remember that as we go further south, that number is going to be decreasing. So 13 feet is not the representative number for places further downstream, for the industries downstream. You're going to have to start subtracting feet, because as you go south, the water is going to be backing out into the lower areas, topography-wise, of Orange County. so that you're not going to be seeing the big 13-foot value from Beaumont all the way down to Port Arthur. So that's something that perhaps was a little bit of confusion earlier. I want to clear that one up in terms of what we're going to see from Beaumont to Port Arthur on the Neches River. There's going to be flooding, but the flooding is not going to be this 13-foot for that entire level from the point A to point B. The number is going to be decreasing as you get closer to the coast. Okay, over in Louisiana, the numbers are still very similar to what we had earlier. Top left is Bundy Creek. We got it going up to 101 feet, which is near the crest from earlier this year. Old Town Bay and the Calcasieu River, major flood on Goss Ferry Road. Bayou Nipiquet at Bazille near the crest of May of 2017, as well as the Mermentone River, same thing, May of 2017 for that crest there. The tornado threat has been decreased for the day. It's down to a 5% or marginal risk for the region, but like I said, we got a tornado warning out earlier about 30 minutes ago. So these tornadoes typically develop very quickly with little warning, and they only last for a few minutes. Here's our storm surge threat graphic. The numbers are 1 to 3 feet above ground level for Jefferson County, 2 to 4 feet above ground level for Cameron, Vermilion, Iberia, and St. Mary parishes. And these values will be at its peak values during high tide tonight, which will be between 12:42 a.m. and 1:48 a.m. Now, this is obviously not too far from the time of when landfall is going to be. So this is unfortunately not good news from that perspective, that the timing of the high tide and the timing of the storm surge will be at the same time. So high tide and a landfall projection at the same time equates to a little bit higher values. That's why we bumped this value up to the 4-foot potential across our Louisiana area. So be aware of that if you're in those coastal areas at risk in Louisiana. We're talking about the Holly Beach, even over in Johnson Bayou. Even though the water isn't going to be in houses that are elevated off the ground, people are going to be basically trapped in that location when the water rises and they can't get out of the area down there. So think of that for the Johnson Bayou, Holly Beach, downtown Cameron, Creole, all the forecast points that we typically talk about east of that area as well. And not to mention, once again, the rainfall that we're going to see tonight is going to make it more difficult for water to drain out of these larger cities inland like Beaumont, the city of Orange, Lake Charles, and Lake Arthur. Here's some wind graphics for you to kind of put things in perspective. The winds aren't a big story, but they're still a factor in the event now. So we wanted to get this out to you. So we're looking at basically the top left picture is the wind speed forecast at 7 p.m. tonight. The top right is the wind speed at 1 a.m. tonight. And so we're looking at winds in the 30 to 45 mile an hour range for the higher values, especially in western Cameron Parish, near the location of landfall on the east side of it. The gust factor will be in the 50 to 60 mile an hour range for that area. And then the winds will slowly decrease overnight. There's going to be what I would consider a medium risk for a few trees to blow down due to the saturated grounds. Tomorrow, this is what the graphics look like. The top left is Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. The top right is Wednesday afternoon at 1 p.m. So you see a gradual weakening of the wind speeds. So we're going to start out in the 20 to 30 mile range across the area with the higher winds on the right side of wherever the center of circulation is located. So if the center of circulation is near, let's just say, Oakdale, the higher winds will be on the east side of that, or the southeast side as well. So you can see there for that 7 a.m. graphic that we're forecasting the highest winds in the Lake Charles to Kinder region for the highest values at that time. This obviously could be tweaked slightly depending on the speed of the storm as it's moving inland tomorrow morning. But by the afternoon, we do expect the winds to decrease in the 15 to 25 mile an hour range, and we're looking at wind gusts more like a 30 mile an hour range. So be aware of that the wind should be decreasing. You do look at that graphic on the top right. Some of the higher wind speeds will be in south central Louisiana still because they're on what we call the onshore flow region. And so that shade there is actually probably more like 25 miles an hour or stronger across coastal sections of Vermilion, Iberia, and St. Mary parishes. That's in the afternoon on Wednesday. So don't let your guard down in south central Louisiana for the wind speeds. And with those wind speeds, we're talking about the water still being piled up in Vermilion Bay. So in summary, Harvey has strengthened a little bit this afternoon and is moving a little bit faster with a landfall projection sometime later on tonight, maybe between 9 p.m. and 2 a.m., somewhere in the Sabine Pass, Texas region. The major problem will continue to be the heavy rain and dangerous flood threat, especially with this being a nighttime scenario now. A very dangerous situation with nighttime flooding occurring in southeast Texas and parts of southwest Louisiana tonight. Due to the new forecast track, the tropical storm warning has been expanded further inland, so it's Jefferson and Orange counties in southeast Texas, as well as Calcasieu, Cameron, Jeff Davis, Vermilion, Iberia, and St. Mary parishes. So we're seeing wind gusts forecasts in the 50 to 60 mile an hour range in these coastal regions of Jefferson and Cameron Parish tonight. And then they'll be gusting in the 40 to 50 mile an hour range up to the Interstate 10 corridor from Beaumont to Lake Charles and Jennings tonight. On Wednesday, they'll still be gusty across the entire forecast area, blowing around 40 miles an hour after sunrise, decreasing to 30 miles an hour in the afternoon. And with that scenario, with all these winds that we're talking about, I do expect to see some trees fall down across our forecast area due to the combination of winds and saturated grounds across our entire forecast area. The storm surge values are 1 to 3 feet for Jefferson County, 2 to 4 feet above ground level for Cameron, Vermilion, Iberia, and St. Mary parishes. Those highest values will occur during the high tide tonight after midnight. Then, rainfall purposes, through tomorrow, we're forecasting an additional 4 to 8 inches of rain in southeast Texas and 3 to 5 inches of rain in southwest, south central, and central Louisiana. With all that being said, a lot of river flooding going on. We're listing the different forecast points that are going to record or major flood. The record flood is for Pine Island Bayou at Sour Lake and Devil Oaks. Major flooding for Village Creek at Kuntz, the Natchez River at Saltwater Barrier in Beaumont, the Sabine River at Bon Weir, Bayou Anacoco at Rose Pine, and Bundick Creek at Bundick Lake, Calcasieu River at Old Town Bay, Bayou Nipiquet at Bazille, and the Mermentau River near Mermentau. And there's continuing a isolated tornado threat tonight into tomorrow. So our next weather briefing will be tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. The storm should be inland at that stage of the game. We'll be talking about, obviously, what rain is left over at that stage of the game, what's left over from the storm surge perspective, and, of course, what kind of flooding impacts we're going to be seeing through the remainder of the week. So let me unmute the phone lines here.
Forecast is raining outside. Since we have new information, I'm going to let Andy go ahead and start with his weather briefing.
Okay, so it looks like Harvey's going to go inland late or later on. Well, actually, early this evening across around the Sabine Lake area. So our main issues are going to be, from a wind perspective, like Roger mentioned, wind gusts in Calcasieu Parish 40 to 50 miles per hour. Now, that's not going to happen nearly all the time. We're generally thinking sustained winds are going to be around 20 to 35 miles per hour, and then we hit those gusts of 40 to 50. We're expecting the winds to decrease somewhat later on tonight, and then continuing on through Wednesday. Now, we did bump our storm surge up to 2 to 4 feet, and again, that's somewhat significant down, say, around Cameron, Vermilion Parish, but overall for this area, it's just, again, going to prevent a lot of this rainwater from draining out. The isolated tornado threat will continue, but should begin to wane somewhat, especially later on tonight. And the main issue, again, is probably going to be the rainfall tonight. Overnight, we do expect rain to increase and potentially reach that 3 to 5 inch amount across southwest Louisiana. So I know the sheriff especially has been messaging, try to stay off the roads. And I think, again, we may see, the potential for some of these bands, again, especially early tonight, about midnight. And we're hoping, especially by sunrise tomorrow, we're going to see a lot of this rain lift a little further to the north. So any questions?
Did I hear Eric right? I mean, that it was the high tide is going to be at the same time as the storm surge?
Yes, it's going to coincide pretty well. I believe it was from around 12:45 to 1:45 a.m. around that time. That's probably going to be the case, yes.
And
correct.
So when do you think it's going to be up? Because we're tidal base,
right,
and that's a big red flag for us right now.
Well, I would probably say I've been going about 2 to 3 hours for the most part. So the issue is going to be probably 3 to 4 a.m. is probably going to be the peak time. Anything else?
Thank you, Andy. And as usual, I want to ask the sheriff to come up and say a few words.
I want to tell Andy to send some sunshine. Basically, same message that we've been giving you. I think the I guess added issue for us right now is the winds and the possibility. So the trees that could possibly be blown down. So let me tell you something. We lose electricity. The wind blow because of the trees blowing over some power lines, which is probably going to happen. We don't know to what extent. It gets very dark out there. And trust me from experience from deputies that are out there traveling, you can easily slam into one of these trees because it's so dark and you just can't see it, or water. So tonight, I'm going to say it again, be extra cautious, more so than the last couple nights, because we're going to add wind as a factor in here for us now, and that could cause even greater problems. So we're going to have to deal with the rain, and now we're going to have to deal with a couple other issues. So again, I stress, don't get complacent. Now is not the time to be complacent and to get off your guard. More importantly than the whole week we've gone through, this is probably the most crucial moment. And hopefully by tomorrow afternoon, I don't think it's going to clear up, but I think we're going to possibly be able to move around a little better, possibly. We'll evaluate that as the day goes along. But we've still been doing rescues all day, not as frequently. It's couple more hours of light. I'm not speaking for the chiefs and the wildlife and fisheries and the other agencies that are here, the fire departments, but again, we would really appreciate it if you could make up your minds, and if you'd like to get out, we'll come get you right now while it's daylight hours. So that's my last plea to you today about that, and whatever you choose, we'll deal with and go with accordingly. So the chief would like to say a few words. I told him I'd give him a couple minutes of my time. So Chief.
Thank you, Sheriff. First of all, I'd like to thank the citizens of Lake Charles. Thank you for staying off the streets. Thank you for your considerations. Thank you for being good neighbors. I'm happy to report from 6 a.m. yesterday to 6 a.m. today, we only had 4 criminal offenses, despite